got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak, surely none will make a sound. And the world's going breathless when your true story comes around.
All right, welcome back to Your Best True Story, episode 23. Freddie, are you excited to be back on the show? Did you think you got fired?
I told my wife I got fired. I told everybody that day that I got fired.
And she was like, thank God, because you don't get paid, Freddie.
She's like, fired from what?
What? She's like, that thing you do occasionally with that guy?
What are you even talking about?
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you back.
Hey, I'm glad to be back, Jim.
Yeah. So, you did say you got a chance to listen to part of that episode, and this is the episode where we announce who won the story vote from last month.
Oh, sweet.
And so I was going to ask you, did you listen to Tristan's call?
I did. That guy is a natural with stories. Oh,
he finally
We're going
won.
to get him on.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's going to disappear again.
Yeah, he might not come on. I'm always shocked if anybody does.
I don't even think he votes for his own stories.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't seen. He did. He won by a hair.
Oh, awesome.
So we'll ask him, send out the invitation to come on the show. I don't know. Like it is, it's not required for people to come on the show. So,
of course.
And I can understand why somebody would not want to come on the show and be
I can't understand that at all.
for multiple reasons. So we will send out the invitation to him for an interview if he wants to, but just either way, Tristan, we are excited you finally won because, like I said the last episode, I kind of think of you as the MVP at this point because he sent in 3 stories, all of which have been fantastic if you go look back through the catalog of shows. And that last one was great also because basically, you'll want to go back to the last episode and listen to it in full, but Tristan beat up a homeless guy.
Yeah, in a night outfit.
Yeah, in a suit of armor for all the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking, like, there's only a few reasons that justify beating up a homeless person in a suit of armor. Those were the reasons.
It is so situation specific that you have to really nail down the right one. But yeah, I love that story.
Yep. So congrats, Tristan, and we will send you the prize money as well. And just an encouragement before we get into the rest of the show, you too, out there, listener, can send in your story to be played on the show and potentially win $250 and come on the show for an interview. And all you got to do is go in the show notes of the episode, click on the SpeakPipe link and record your own story as easy as leaving a voicemail, and it automatically comes to us and we will play it on the show. And as we'll find out later on in this episode, Freddie, you can even do it while you're drunk.
What?
Yes. We don't even
some drunk story.
Yeah, we don't even have a sobriety
no
requirement.
Checkpoint.
Yep. So and speaking of today's stories, we've got 4 good ones. 2 are pretty creepy. Then we've actually got kind of a feel-good story, and then we're going to end up with kind of that funny drunk story at the end. And the theme for this episode, if there could be one, because they're all kind of different stories, but at least the first 2 couple stories, I would say, deal with a theme of perception. Cool. The creepier stories of kind of like what's going on in reality and how much maybe we can perceive or not perceive correctly of reality. And in that vein, since I like to try and touch on kind of some current events before we get into the the actual calls, have you heard about the new discovery where they can make skin translucent now?
I came across some mention of that there was like translucent mice in some experiments, but I didn't happen to click on that link.
Well, I'm going to click on it for you and play just to give everyone a quick overview. This is a guy that I found on YouTube called Anton Petrov. And I'll put a link in the show notes to his channel on YouTube. It's apparently a scientist that just does videos to kind of keep people up to speed on groundbreaking scientific discoveries. And what we're talking about is that there is now apparently a pretty established way to use a common food dye that they alter just a little bit the molecular structure of somehow to rub on people's skin, and it makes the skin translucent, where you can actually look through someone's skin and see their organs. And
wait, your muscles come before your organs?
Yep.
Did the muscles get?
Yeah, I'm not positive. These are some of the same questions I had. But we'll give Anton Petrov's kind of summary of the mice experiment of this real quick. To get everybody up to speed, and then we can kind of discuss what we think about it. And just to warn you, he is, I think, Russian, maybe. So there's a little bit of an accent. But here's Anton.
When it comes to various types of skin, and specifically, they discovered a technique that turns skin invisible, or essentially transparent, allowing us to see through the skin into the body itself. But more importantly, this actually applies to pretty much any tissue, making this an incredible discovery in the medical field. And so let's actually discuss what's happening here and how this was achieved, and why this is technically absolutely brilliant. And so then the experiments were conducted with living mice. And in order to test this, researchers basically rubbed a solution of tartrazine on certain body parts of mice. First this was done with scalp, and then abdomen. And like before, suddenly, the skin started to disappear and become transparent. And this was done by preventing the scattering of light, and thus allowing us to see inside the organs of mice. And so for the scalp, this now revealed blood vessels inside the brain, whereas for the abdomen, it now became possible to see intestines, and even the motion of blood caused by heartbeats, with these observations even revealing microscopic scales. But because this was just a solution on the skin, once this was washed off, everything went back to normal. Which literally reminds me of that vanishing cream from Tom and Jerry. Although in this case, it obviously doesn't make the organs transparent, only the skin. But it does provide an incredible level of resolution and the ability to see inside organs, which can then be used for anything from medical diagnosis to even direct surgery without the use of optical tools. But the fact that this works shouldn't come as a surprise. There are actually some animals out there that evolved this naturally already. For example, the glass frogs, or even certain types of zebrafish that very often have transparent skin.
And I sort of had some reservations, like where I think you were going with that is like, how does that work exactly? Where you're rubbing on the skin, but how does it determine the depth of like how far in you're looking into the body? There's something that rang to, so I basically checked online, and it seems like according to the independent.co.uk, they do say researchers turned skin and muscle tissues of live mice transparent by applying a yellow food dye known as tartrazine, which is commonly used in snack chips and candy coating. They found the method was reversible and undone with a quick wash. So apparently there are not just this guy, but other multiple outlets are reporting this was a real study, and they've actually done this. So it's pretty strange.
No, well, all right. What I'm getting from this is that those things could already be transparent, and we're just perceiving them as not transparent. And then they're putting on this dye that then allows us to not perceive it.
Yes, that's where I was kind of hoping you were going to go, because this does lead into especially our second call of that kind of concept of like what is... So it's pretty fascinating.
It's like it feels like it just cancels out something that happens in our brain, and then we go looking, and then the next thing that does connect the circuit is what we'll see.
Yeah.
So it's just mutes out the things in between it for us.
But then
at
it is
least.
an interesting question if you're rubbing it on the skin, because that video goes on then to talk about how like eventually it could be used to where for some stuff you don't even need x-rays or ultrasounds. Like
Well,
they're literally
you just
just
keep rubbing until
Yeah.
you get to the thing that you need to see, right?
Yeah, but how does this? They're just like, I guess you could use a combination of putting on exterior skin, but then injecting it. into
Right,
the
yeah, that's what I was
muscles,
thinking.
and
Is like, how are you going to get all the way invisible? Would be my next thing, which
Yeah.
would be, that would be pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
you just take the invisible pill and then lather the cream on the outside.
And that would be the obvious then extrapolation, which he even mentions the whole idea of the invisible man thing concept is if you can imagine this substance in a pill or something that you can ingest where it's evenly distributed throughout your entire body, all the tissues, then all of a sudden you're literally talking about being able to take something and you would be invisible.
Except for your hair, though, because you don't have any flow to your hair.
Yeah, your hair and your
nails, right? So you just be a wig walking around.
Yeah, a creepy wig and nails and
Yeah.
hair nails. Just...
Well, you have hair all over your body, though, so you'd be like a furry, invisible guy. And then like all the Rob,
I'm just
the one who
picturing
does
like
all
a bunch of perverts taking it, sneaking into people's rooms. They're like, Frank, I can see you there.
So
I
then you'd
can
have
see
to
your hair.
shave down like Danny DeVito did in Sunny in Philadelphia that day.
Oh, yeah,
where
you have to
we shaved all the
go.
hair off of his
Yeah.
body and went hairless.
But then you'd also have to rip out all your toenails and your teeth. Are teeth porous
Teeth-
enough that it could?
Teeth have some sort of
Yeah.
flow going still.
Yeah.
Teeth would be interesting.
Yeah.
And then the innards of your body, I guess, like
I would think a pill they could potentially make that
because it
where
would have
got-
contact
yeah,
with all that
could,
stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
If it got into your bloodstream,
This is
Could be.
very advanced.
Yeah.
Like, well, you really have to
But then,
be into it to get
like
find-
we know the military-industrial complex years ago invented an invisibility cloak,
yeah.
which then it's real because it vanished. Like nobody talks about it anymore. once
Right,
they-
which would be a much easier way to achieve
well,
this.
imagine taking both. You take the invisibility pill and then put on the invisibility cloak to cover up your hair or the parts that.
Just
like you
imagine
would-
like a Green Man, suit.
Yeah.
Like you just throw that on, but it's the invisibility suit
Yeah.
cloak, so that takes care of your hair, nails, all that sort of stuff, and your face too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get the fabric right, where it does this canceling out effect
Yeah.
for everybody's brains. Now you're still going to be for heat signature. You got to deal with that, and then X-rays or all the other kinds of
Yeah.
perceptible things. You're going to be still on camera. They're still going to be able
Yeah.
to see you. Just people.
So it's
won't
not
be able
even
to see
the
you.
robot dogs that will be hunting us. They will have all that.
Yeah, they've got
equipment.
all of. Yeah, they
so
got.
you're not going to be able
And the
to.
drones will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this might be cool at parties,
Yeah.
but.
Everything in the end just comes down to being for 2 weeks. It's really cool at parties.
But Rob, our underwater photographer guy, gets to see a bunch of translucent things down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, because they grow like that because they don't have light and they're clear and see.
And that's one thing, the guy that I played, the Anton guy, was talking about that does make sense. I mean, it is already in nature, things that have translucent skin. So it's not that big a leap.
But it's
But that's-
not invisible. That's the
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like hazy or sort of see through.
Yeah.
But I get what that would be kind of cool. Like if you're like, we think your liver's malfunctioning, let's take a look at it.
Yeah.
And then they rub on some stuff, and then you're looking
Yeah.
at your liver.
Yep.
That would be cool.
And then eventually there's going to be like a certain percentage that like somehow has some weird side effect where it doesn't ever reverse.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be awesome. Like
That'll-
those people
yep.
walking around just like, hey, Bill, we still see your liver.
That'll be
been a
covered
month.
in the fine
Yeah.
print.
Yeah. so that just wanted to play that to kind of give a little bit of current events, but it does play into especially our second call. So keep those kind of concepts in mind, but we're going to have to go through the first call to begin with, which is I'll preface the first call by asking, have you ever in your life had a thing that you swore you knew as being accurate that everybody else around you in the world claims like you're inaccurate about? And I'm just like, an example would be like something, this is dramatic, but like say you all your life you have known the color purple to be one thing. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, like, everybody is telling you that's the color orange, and your memory does not match it. You're just like, what are you talking about? That is the
like
color.
An extreme Mandela effect?
It seems what happened to this woman is like the Mandela effect. And we'll actually probably end up discussing the Mandela effect. But I'll give you, this is an interesting call that we got from a woman named Sophie from Minnesota, and she is talking about something that happened to her in high school that I will just call the imposter. And Sophie, take it away.
Hey, Best True Story podcast. I've got a story that I think you guys might be interested in. This takes place about 9 years back when I was a senior in high school in St. Paul, Minnesota. And my name's Sophie, by the way. And I was a senior in my calculus class. And I sat next to a girl named Izzy. And I went to a really big high school. There were probably 2,000 total students there. So it wasn't too uncommon to, like, know somebody kind of like you maybe knew their name or recognized their face, but you didn't really know them that well. I was kind of in a different crowd than she was, though. Like, she was kind of a goth punk party girl kind of vibe, dark makeup and sort of seemed like a little bit of a rebel. And then I was kind of more the girl jock, kind of into, soccer and basketball. And so we didn't at all mingle in the same crowds. But again, we got along very well in the math class, and she was very sweet overall. But what's weird is that about halfway through my senior year, and this happened in the middle of the week, like, I had been talking to her on a Tuesday, and then the next day, Wednesday, in my math class, I swear she was a different person. And I don't mean personality-wise, or I mean literally the girl that I knew as Izzy was a different person that was going by the name Izzy and sitting in that girl's seat. And another thing I'd point out is I'm very good visually at spotting differences in things, very minute differences. Like if people show up games where you've got to spot a little difference in a picture or something visual, I'm very quick to identify what that is. And I'm even a person who, like, lots of times identical twins that most people can't tell the difference between, I can actually fairly easily identify subtle differences between, like, within millimeters of different parts of how their face is shaped that, give away which twin is which to me when most people can't see it. And with this girl, Izzy, she still had the same long dark hair. She still, like, I could see how people would think she was the same girl if they didn't know her or interact with her, because she dressed the same, she looked overall the same, but almost more like she might have been a twin sister or a sister or relative or something of the girl, because I could notice her eyes were slightly wider. She had one of her teeth, which had not been crooked on Tuesday, was crooked on Wednesday. Her forehead was a little bit more narrow in the new version of Izzy, but nobody else saw this except for me. But even the teachers, no one knew this was a different girl. And as far as I know, this new girl has gone on living by that identity, Izzy, forever since then. And I don't know what happened to the original Izzy, and I'm sure I'm not crazy. And I actually work in the cosmetics and aesthetics field now, and there's no surgery, nothing that could have made the changes that I saw in her in that short of a time period of one day. It was absolutely, one girl went home and a different girl showed up the following day and has lived the life as that person ever since then. I am sure of it, and I have no idea what that means or what's going on or what the explanation would be. But yeah, that's the story. Hopefully you guys can use it and have something interesting to talk about. It. Would love to hear your theories on what happened. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Now, Freddie, I'm going to give you a few possible classifications.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I was thinking this potentially could be like a Mandela effect kind of thing. You could also have like a quantum jumping in realities.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could go to something more terrestrial, like twin sister that actually maybe just somehow took over, an unknown twin sister that took over the one girl's life.
Yeah.
Or you could go into more like clones and aliens cloning people, or military industrial complex. What do you got? What do you think the solution for Sophie is?
Probably the most realistic of those would be the timeline jump, that she jumped timelines and is now in the timeline where I forgot the girl's name is Izzy had gotten in a car accident when she was 7 and now looks like this.
Huh.
You know, which, yeah, I know that's that being the most realistic of of the scenarios.
That's interesting if that's the most realistic.
Right, because it's either a false memory that this lady, and that could be probably just as realistic if this lady has had a perceived version of this person for the whole time, which was incorrect, and maybe some cells in her brain shifted, and now her perception is clarified.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe she has a brain tumor, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah. Well, but it was 9 years ago that happened. So you would think if she had a brain tumor or something, it would have been more symptomatic over that time.
That could, your brain does very weird things. Like I was seeing a couple examples of it today, where in the video it's like you're looking at a picture and they're telling you, okay, what do you see that in color, right? And you're like, yeah, that's a colored picture. And then they zoom in on it and it's a black and white picture, but it has little tiny lines of like a grid of color that goes through it. But your brain just looks at those and then fills in the whole thing and colors the whole thing for you. It just, it's like, we assume that he needs to know that whole thing is colored. But when you zoom in on it, it is not. It's a grid. It's a pretty obvious grid of color.
Have you, I think it was you that actually sent it to me years ago, probably 3-4 years ago. It was a TikTok or some video of it was a word that was covered up by static. Mm-hmm. So you really couldn't hear the word. You just heard the static until they flashed a word on the screen.
Right.
And then you heard that word in the static. But it was somehow, the video was pretty, unless there was a trick to it that I wasn't, but it was pretty amazing because I think you could go, I can't remember how. It was, but it worked.
I remember what the video was. It was like somebody saying a word, and then before you have any, you can try and hear what word you're hearing, right? And then what the video was explaining and showing an example of is that as you read a word, you would start to hear that word, and they would change the word that you were looking at. And you would hear the new word, And if you went back and started the video over and covered the words, you could hear that the sound had never changed.
Yeah.
The entire video, the sound was exactly the same.
And it was crazy when
and it
you
was
realized,
all perception.
Yep. When you realize that, how much of that, I just remember being blown away by that video. I was like, holy crap. This, have you ever heard of EVPs? I think they call it, with ghost hunters, where they have some kind of equipment where they try to catch noises that are imperceivable to humans most of the time, but they claim they're, ghosts speaking.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I thought that was primarily sort of that effect, where it was like the suggestion, because you wouldn't be able to, I noticed, if you just listened to it, it would just sound like garbled static until they told you, no, listen to it again, you'll hear "get out" or something. And then once they say that or put it on the screen, you absolutely can hear it.
Right.
But it's just bizarre how much of that is malleable.
Right. Like your brain makes up everything you see, actually. But I mean, it fills in so many blanks for you that you take as reality every day, every minute of every day. That you could not be where you think you are.
Yeah, it's crazy that I pulled up a list of, and I'll read a quick example of it, of the Mandela effect. Because I think this is sort of like what we're talking about, of memory and perception. For people that don't know what the Mandela effect is, it's a phenomenon where a large group of people collectively misremember facts, events, or details in a consistent manner. It's named after the widespread false memory that Nelson Mandela died in prison during the 1980s, when in reality he was released in 1990 and passed away in 2013. And what I found was most interesting from this, and some of these I had heard, but I'm going to read a list of the most well-known Mandela effect false memories.
Yeah.
90% of them, I believe, in the wrong memory.
Okay.
Like, I do remember it the wrong way, which is just bizarre that, like,
that everybody remembers it the wrong way.
Like, why do we so many?
It's a timeline jump.
Yeah. And so some of them are Star Wars, the famous scene with Darth Vader and Luke. And when he finds out he's his father.
I am your father.
Yeah. Luke, I am your father, but that's not the right line.
It is the right line.
Yeah, I swear. Because I had the correct line, according to this thing, is "No, I am your father."
Yeah.
Which that doesn't sound like a good movie line.
No,
it's Luke, I am your father. And we even had a buddy when I was in my early 20s, a buddy of mine in Montana named Luke, that we said that line constantly to. So how did we all...
The CIA does stuff like this to mess with you, to have you second-guessing things you know, so that they can come in and have you second-guess other things you thought you knew, too. Yeah. So it's just a preemptory thing where, you know.
It could be. Yeah, that's the, and some of the others of these are Fruit of the Loom. Many people recall the logo had featured.
Cornucopia.
It did.
It, of course, did. But the lady some people have found old Fruit of the Loom stuff with the cornucopia on it.
Oh, really?
And yeah, they actually just took it out, like, for whatever reason.
Son of a bitch.
But
Perplexity AI, you don't turn on me, Perplexity. Don't start lying to me. So, another one is Looney Tunes, and this just has to do with the spelling, but I absolutely remember the apparent wrong spelling.
You remember the U?
Well, no, they claim it spelled Looney Tunes like with music. With it. No, they claim the correct spelling is Tunes, but I remember it as Toons. Same thing with Bernstein Bears. They made up some crappy stain which never existed. Those bears never, they were never here. Monopoly Man, they claim he did not have a monocle.
Oh, he for sure had a monocle.
He definitely had a monocle.
He for sure had a monocle. But look, okay, so imagine that these governments control the internet and it didn't organically exist. Like, it's just, they just slowly released it and gave you more and more and more. But now they can come back and scrub it and change things for you.
Yeah.
Like on a whim to, like I said, have you self-guessing what you know and don't know, and then they can go and change other things.
That is why it's so terrifying to have, like, especially as we ramp up into AI stuff, and why, not to get on a political thing, but that's why you need decentralization of power, because how it is going to be getting so scary if there's only centralized, close-knit groups that control the power to make everything, basically.
Well, you can change history.
Oh, you change yeah.
I mean, they did change history.
Yeah.
If you and that's what I said, the internet is one thing, but if you have to find books before 1920, and then the things that they say in those books before 1920, you'll find very odd, Jim.
If you were, I can't remember if I brought him up or not. I'll try and find a clip to play on one of the upcoming episodes, maybe. But there's a guy called The Archivist on YouTube that is basically his whole shtick is he goes back and finds old newspaper articles, mainly from America, but like around that same time period, pre-1920s or so.
Yeah.
It is crazy. The degree of a lot of it ties into that whole, like, the Smithsonian potential cover-ups and stuff. They were finding buried cities and giants.
They dump those. They dump those in the ocean.
Yeah,
right. Can't be having. Where did the giants fit into everything?
And it's just amazing. Like, there's so many of them, and all around the country, and then it's all condensed to, they were wacky back in the 1890s.
The things that they thought they knew. What a bunch of buffoons.
All writing independently across the country.
Yeah.
Oh, man. The interesting thing, though, is to give the possible opposite argument from that the CIA is trying to fuck with us, is when you look into how reliable human memory is just in general.
But it's horrible.
Yeah. And some of the facts that I pulled up were studies estimate that eyewitness misidentifications are involved in 75% of convictions that are now overturned with DNA. So basically, prior to DNA technology, there were people that would get put in jail with eyewitnesses swearing that person had done that thing was the main thing that put them in jail. And that occurred in 3 out of 4 cases that were overturned by DNA.
I can see that.
Like an entire...
I mean, even in your most hyper-focused state, your brain is assuming so many things to the point where you don't really know.
Well,
It fills in the blanks for you.
Especially if, leading back to that example we were just talking about, the audio thing, you can take static, show somebody a word, and then they can hear that word in the static that easily. Like, that's almost, it's not even like, it lends to sort of like that it's not even you're misremembering things, but that reality itself is so malleable that there might not be any objective truth. So it's not misremembering almost. It's like just a weird kind of like where in the soup are you congealing things in this moving soup of potentialities.
See? Much easier.
Yeah. So you're right. That is the most realistic.
I told you.
She quantum jumped.
But I'll refer to one more video that you can probably go find on TikTok, or a version of it. It's like where they're showing you celebrities on the left and the right, just out of your peripheral vision, and they have you focus on a dot. And as you focus on the dot for longer and longer, the faces of the people start changing into monsters, like weird looking, like their eyes get all big and mouths, like kind of looking like that guy from Lord of the Rings, like, and you can see that in your peripheral vision happen,
Yeah.
like over the course of a couple of seconds. But then when you shift your focus, your little circle of actual focus back over to them, they're all normal. And you can go back through the video and see that those faces were never not normal faces, but your brain
Wow,
gives
and-
them that effect.
Wait, now and explain again, like what's triggering though the shift?
It has to do with how your brain perceives things and fills in blanks for you.
Huh.
Since you're focusing on the dot,
Yeah.
it starts to warp their faces.
Okay,
on
but the
sides.
faces were always
They
normal.
were always normal.
So does that just mean anything in your periphery you turn into monsters?
No, I don't know how it exactly. It's a function of your brain.
Yeah.
That it's the thing that you only really focus on. Let's say a 10% circle that's in
Yeah.
your direct vision right in front of you. Everything else around is assumed
Yep.
by your brain.
Yeah.
And there can be problems with, it has a bias or it says, well, this shape, the last 100 times I saw this shape, it was this thing and it was this color.
Yeah.
So I'm going to color it in that color because we got to save space. Jim needs information,
Yeah. Yeah.
quickly. So let me just fill that in for him.
Yeah.
And it can be wrong.
Yeah.
But watching those faces change in real time as you're not looking at them, as you're sort of seeing them,
Yeah.
you're like, what the hell is that? And then you scan over and they're back to their normal. And you can rewind the video and see that they were always normal.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And maybe that
You
just
can't trust your brain.
Maybe that just means there's always monsters off in our periphery.
Yeah, that can become completely correct at so many different levels.
Well, this is all going to lead in perfectly into our second phone call. But before we get to that, I will just end this segment with you remember Ed McMahon
Yeah.
giving checks for publishers.
Of course.
He did. I will fight
Yeah.
people that claim that Ed McMahon was not giving publishers clearinghouse checks. That's on this list.
Yeah,
that
with
he never worked
balloons.
for
He'd
them.
come with balloons and a giant
Yes.
check and be on the doorstep,
Yeah.
and you'd get those
How would we
mailers every
How would we have made that up? That is
He was a CIA asset. That's why. He,
I distinctly remember him knocking on people's doors.
yeah.
Ah, CIA. Why? Why do you make it so hard? All right. Well, now that we are squarely into the discussion of the CIA fucking with us, and or we just can't decide what
And a
reality
horrible
is, or
memory.
and having
Perception.
having horrible memory and reality is nothing that we can be sure of at any moment. Now we're going to hear a call from a guy named Teddy that's real quick going to talk about what his grandfather, or I think dad, saw in Vietnam.
Cool.
Teddy, take it away.
Hey, my name's Teddy. I wanted to tell you guys a story that it's not really my story, but I figured it would be interesting and might get on your show. It's my dad's story, who's passed away now, but he used to swear up and down this was real. He served in Vietnam, and he was on the ground there, a corporal in the Marines, and he was, and I've looked online, and it seems like there are other people that say this did happen, that his platoon at one point got issued a type of night vision goggle that I don't understand completely all how it works, but it was a different night vision goggle than they've got now. It used some sort of red dye, which they, I believe, banned after what happened in Vietnam, which was, and this is what my dad swore, was that when they put the night vision goggles on, these red night vision goggles, they could see well in the dark, but they would see things that they wouldn't see when they took the goggles off, like sort of like paranormal or sort of a window into some other dimension or something that they would claim, or at least what my dad said, is he had one vivid story about them seeing a bunch of creatures up in the trees, in the branches, that he described as sort of looking like monkeys with wings, but demonic, and them freaking out because it wasn't just him seeing it. It was like 6 or 7 other guys that had on the goggles as well, and they started shooting at these creatures. And but then once they took the goggles off, the creatures were no longer there. And shortly after that was when they had them destroy all the goggles and not use them anymore, because that same event that happened to them, similar things were happening to other platoons and groups throughout Vietnam, apparently. So anyway, he swore that's what happened. I wish I could tell the story better, but like, I wasn't actually there. I'm just kind of telling you, summarizing what my dad said, but it was a pretty gripping, scary event, it sounded like to him, that night when they had them on, and he actually saw some sort of creatures up in the trees, which from that point on, then he believed that they were some sort of demons or other dimension beings that, like, basically are probably always there, but you just don't know they're there because you can't see them and they can't exactly interact with you. So anyway, hopefully that's a interesting story you guys can use, and thanks a lot. My name's Teddy. Love the show.
And once I looked into that, Freddie, there actually multiple accounts
Yeah.
of that.
There's movies that are made on that exact subject.
Was that what Jacob's Ladder was about?
I don't remember the exact.
That
I don't
was
remember that movie. I remember the name,
that had
but I don't.
something to do with that.
I
I don't know exactly.
know there's
that,
a
but-
purple version of this too, with the Diasin glasses.
Well, I think that's when I was looking into it. Yeah, Diasin was, I thought, what they used for the red.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
those are purple in color, to my knowledge.
Huh.
But yeah, my first question is like, okay, so they can see them, but they can't interact with them, but they can interact with the trees because they're in the trees,
Yeah.
right? So the tree would have to exist in that wavelength
Yep.
where we don't,
Yeah. Well.
or the bullets don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's what
Yeah.
my logical brain's like. Okay, they're exactly there. They're true. So, but they're sitting in the tree.
Well, it's sort of like that question of putting the translucent skin cream on. How deep does it go, and why does it stop there?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get your point. Like, why would the thing
Yeah.
that is not in this? Well, all right. The way I started thinking about it is, and doing a little bit of research, is just on the concept of how little of the actual visible, or how little of light waves are visible to us.
It's
a
insane.
tiny fraction
It's
compared to
beyond tiny.
Yeah, the audio obviously can't show this, but like Freddie, you can see. Yeah,
0.00035% of the
yeah, you've got like
light spectrum.
Yeah, and you've got like gamma rays, X-rays, UV, infrared, microwave, radio wave, which I forget. Radio wave is actually part of the light spectrum.
Yeah.
That's strange
Every-
since it's your ears. But yeah, I mean that's fascinating if you think about that. There could be entities existing on all of those, spectrums where they
Yeah.
exist in the world.
right.
But then we just have no concept.
The world is that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah,
like, what is that?
Yep.
You know, because I mean, the trees have to transmute all of those light spectrums in order for them to, you know, interact with them.
Yep.
So, and it's not just our light, Jim. We can only hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, which is probably just as infinitesimally small as the light spectrum.
Yeah.
So we're like blind and deaf.
Well, that's what I was looking into, just some of the interesting facts about, like, because animals obviously have different perception than we do and can see different parts of the spectrum, like, and found some interesting facts like that, which I had not actually heard before, but they have now somehow deduced, I think on the ultraviolet level, which we would never see, flowers leave roadmap markings for bees.
Oh, wait.
To, like, there's basically flowers on a level we can't see. They are growing. They've got, like, directional somehow.
Wait, like a wisp of flower leaves the flower and floats through the air for the bee to find.
No. Like, on the leaves, like, there will be, like, something. My understanding, something that is on, like
a beacon.
Yeah. Like, basically like a
radar.
Yeah, like somehow
signal.
like a plane landing thing, like, you know, where it's like follow this path to go to get to the flower that is pollinating.
Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how the birds migrate and stuff?
Yep.
Based on some sort of magnetics.
Well, yeah, and what I was also, that same article I was reading was talking about the birds as well. Like, you know how on nature shows and stuff, they always show, like, you know, the cockatoo is attracting a mate by doing his dance. Yeah, that it might actually, they found that out on a different light spectrum. The birds actually have different markings that I don't know if they come and go, but there's, like, that is a bigger trigger for the mating than potentially anything else. Like, the birds can see the markings that we can't see. So there's a whole different, besides for the stupid dance, there's a whole another level of communication going on that we're just finding out about even exists.
Well, and this, I liken it to being shit-faced drunk. You are on a whole nother plane, having a whole nother existence. You're like the king of the castle in the bar, dancing your ass off, and the lights and the smoke and everything's
feel like $1 million.
And now just take your focus away from that. You're that person. You're the person sitting on the side watching you stumble around in your stupor by yourself,
screaming, "I'm king of the world,
I'm king of the world," and drooling on yourself with your untucked shirt and stained, like. It's two different things.
Yeah. and then you take that even further, then down the road into psychedelics and hallucinogenics that are, which actually, thinking about that, let me play. This is an interesting clip I found from a podcast called Ninjas Are Butterflies, where they have actually recently covered this Vietnam weird red goggle thing.
Okay.
And this is just a short clip, only a minute long, but kind of them giving a summary of what they found. And also the last point the guy makes is pretty interesting.
In the Vietnam War, the night vision goggles that they were issued were red light. Multiple people in the U.S. military that were using them were seeing flying demons. There's an instance where they're flying these helicopters in Vietnam. It was a safe zone, and then the gunner in the back just started shooting, and the pilot's like, "What are you shooting at?" And he's like, "The demon!" And then people on the ground in the jungles that were using it, they were also seeing like these demonic-looking, freaky-looking creatures. And so the military banned those night vision goggles.
They were putting stuff inside the chemicals in the goggles. The chemical was literally leaking, and so they were literally tripping, having some type of like, it was a hallucinogenic drug. And
so that last point was, I did think, pretty interesting. What we were just talking about is that's potentially an explanation. Is that and I think it is that Dynacine, or however you pronounce it, that they used in the goggles, which it was actually either they were seeing interdimensional demons or something to do with the construction of those goggles was actually getting into their eyes and making them hallucinate, trip, and see stuff that wasn't there, which that sounds like the CIA explanation to me.
Yeah. Convenient.
Yep.
Like,
but it is interesting that if this is real and they did use those goggles, that they don't use them anymore, that they switched over to using the green night vision goggles.
Yeah, there's a lot of explaining to do. There's more there than meets the eye, right? Which show is that from? More than meets the eye. Oh, Transformers. Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah. More than meets the eye. That's how
Was
the
that Mandela
song,
effect thing?
No, that's how the song went into the beginning of the Transformers cartoon.
I never got into the Transformers.
No?
No.
Badass. They were cars and trucks, and then they were robots. And then they go back to being cars and trucks again.
It wasn't very, I liked animals. I didn't get into the mechanics as much when I was a kid.
So you must have loved Manimal then.
I liked all of anything to do, with creatures. Yeah.
Thundercats?
Yeah, Thundercats were solid show. Thundercats was great. But what were we talking about now? How do we get from Vietnam demons to Thundercats? Are we running out of coffee, Freddie?
No, we're okay. We just got sidetracked a little bit there. No, yeah, more than meets the eye. That's how we got off of that. Because I'm like, I remember that was...
Yeah, you were starting to sing a Transformers song.
Saying that, I'm like, where did that seems relevant now. And they were training us and telling us that there's more that meets the eye a long time ago.
So what? All right. So more than meets the eye, like the idea of there being multiple different entities on different spectrums all around us completely jives with because I'm a big, look at themes in cultures and look for big predominant themes. And when you go back and look at religious, spiritual texts and from all around the world, they all talk about different spirits.
Do you exist on all those planes?
Well, how do you mean exist? Like,
I mean, you can't perceive it.
Yeah.
But do you exist?
Well, but I would almost think like there's only the one, maybe different planes. If I said different planes was wrong way to think about it. I'm almost picturing there's one plane.
Right.
There's one reality.
Right.
But we are only like the light spectrum thing. We're just seeing a fraction of that reality. And so there is only one reality, but contains way more than we can perceive.
So then we exist in those spectrums.
Sure, because there's just it's all reality, but but there could be, and that's
okay. Let's go down the tree things that they see. What do they do? Like, they eat?
That was my question.
Do they eat things?
Yeah.
Do they have grocery stores?
But the thing that makes me sort of suspicious or where it doesn't add up is like in both those stories, they see the creature.
Yeah.
They start shooting at the creature. And then in that ninjas or butterflies explanation and another one that I heard, the demons started like flying at the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like the question, but then when they take the goggles off, there's nothing there, so they stop shooting.
Do they affect the helicopter in any manner?
Yeah, that's the question but this is where it could get really interesting, is that maybe they are affecting stuff. And so, okay, picture you're on the helicopter and you have goggles on and you see a demon flying at the helicopter. You freak out, you start shooting at it. You take the goggles off. like your bullets don't do anything to it. It keeps on flying. You take the goggles off. Your commander takes the goggles off your head, says, "Calm down. What are you doing?" And you're like, "Ah, there's nothing there. Sorry, I must have hallucinated." But then maybe that demon, even though it looks like some creature that is physically going to fight you, maybe what the demon does is then he flies and somehow interacts on an energetic level with the helicopter or you. Maybe that's what causes somebody to have a stroke or a heart attack, or maybe the helicopter to crash. Maybe there is some negative interaction, but they're like, you know what I mean? It's like they're affecting things, but not in ways that we would think would match with what we see when we can get that brief glimpse at them. Because we're thinking in our human terms of fighting, but maybe they are interacting on in some sort of different level where they're.
It's like, okay, but to what end now? And so then the helicopter exists in their reality. To what end does the helicopter exist in the reality? And why are they demons in the first place? And why are they flying around affecting the helicopter? Does it like bees that, you know, the helicopter's vibration pierced through to their reality when they were Netflixing and chilling on their couch, and then they're like, look at this demon that's coming to, you know, that's attacking me.
The best sort of most comprehensive explanation that I've ever heard, not an expert in it at all, but I brought it up before, is the Islamic concept of jinn. Which is basically described as an entire different race of creatures from humanity that was also created by God, that lives in a different sort of light wave or spectrum to us. They can actually see us. But they all, like, they're not demonic in the sense that they just are purely evil. They've all got their own lives, interactions going on that have their own cultures. But so they've got as many motivations as humans do. So if something like that existed, then you could see where maybe those quote unquote demons or whatever in the jungles in Vietnam, maybe they were just pissed off by the helicopters. And maybe it's almost that kind of individualistic, like where maybe they can see, much like animals can see different parts of spectrums than we can. Maybe those creatures can see us all the time. Occasionally we do stuff that pisses them off. Maybe they ignore us most of the time. Maybe they fuck with us. They've got tales of, like, the concept of genies, you know, like, appearing out of a lamp. And then bestowing wishes. That came from the original Islamic concept of jinn, that, like, they could interact with us and help or hurt us. But it was kind of always up to, like, they could be mischievous. They could do, you know, anything particular to their personality interacting with us. So maybe it's something like that, where there's all kinds of interactions potentially going on a level they can see us, but we just can't perceive it most of the time. But they could be influencing us without us knowing it.
I'd want to know more about them and their culture, and what do they exist on, and do they utilize the... Because
you could find out the answer to all those things by going down some occult paths, Freddie, which I would not recommend.
The overlapping where they live. Do they live where we live? Do they have malls energetically? Like, because are they experiencing the same rendering of this game that we're experiencing? Like, do they have a mall?
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a.
Do they have advertising?
Do they have the same mall?
When you're in their level of perception, is it some sort of beautiful natural, you know, cave system? It's not a mall. You know, like, these are my questions. Like, if they're sitting in the tree, they're obviously or supposedly sitting in the same tree that we're seeing. So does that transfer also to the Buick.
Yeah.
Like, do they have a Buick over there?
Yeah.
Then you're a demon with a Buick. It's like,
That's
I
good questions.
gotta put that somewhere.
Yeah, good questions. Have you ever heard the concept, which kind of fascinates me? Because, all right, so I have at one time got really fascinated in learning and using like Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, healing practices like acupuncture, but also their herbs and things like that. And so, when you look back in the texts of way back, old Chinese medicine texts, they always refer to disease as evil. And there's almost an overlapping of that they are identifying diseases as evil spirits or different. And then recently I found some people that are trying to bring this more to the forefront, that they believe that parasites and germs are demons.
It could be.
Yeah, which I think is a fascinating concept. Sort of like this, that there could be stuff that's there and interacting with us that we're not fully aware of. Like, what if that is the answer, that like germs and parasites are real, but our classification of them is germs and parasites, but those are actually the demons. And maybe the only overlapping, maybe that could be their totality of what they are, is a parasite or a germ or a bacteria. But then again, maybe that's just what we're maybe that's the little pinky finger of that infrared demon, or somehow that's their, part of their signature of their interaction with us. I don't know. It's a fascinating concept though, you're getting infected by evil itself when you're getting sick.
The whole evil thing, sends me on a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just and related to, not to derail it into religious or anything, but I'm just saying the concept of like death and destruction and negativity is, that it is an actual
decomposing.
entity. Yeah.
Like, decomposing can be bad or it could be great.
Yeah.
Like, look at your compost pile. You view that as awesome, but it's death and decomposition and breaking down and transmuting.
Depends on if you're the compost pile or not.
Well, it is, but at the same time, maybe it's good to transmute.
Sure.
Like, it's all perception.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, sure. That's it. Yeah, you take a big enough timeline. I mean, it's all. But on an individual timeline for the person experiencing it, most of the time it's a negative if they're getting sick.
Right, because from their frame,
there's few people.
Yeah.
There's few people while it's happening to them. They go, "You've got stage 4 cancer." This is beautiful. Because it's sort of like maybe with time, and maybe there's some very spiritually adept people that have that reaction, but most people, you find out that you've got a deadly disease, it's a bummer.
Some people, yeah.
Most, I'm gonna go with most. So, it's a nice thought that maybe people wouldn't think that, but most of the time,
no,
it's a little rough.
No, just be careful with how they decide to treat you for that.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying on that topic.
So, moving on now to a hopeful call. Freddie.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, we're gonna change it up from
deaf,
infrared,
blind, and dumb experience of a life we live in.
Infrared demons and parasitic evil. We're gonna switch to Ash, who is calling about a kind of crazy, cool experience he had in Denver, involving a homeless person, that balances out Tristan's experience with the homeless person.
Okay.
This is like kind of the good that can happen.
Sweet.
Potentially. Not that Tristan's was bad. I don't want to.
Hey everybody, my name's Ash, and I wanted to call in. I was kind of inspired too from one of your earlier episodes. I think it was called the Hurricane Miracle Story, something like that, from several episodes back. That was kind of like a coincidental or faith in a higher power in the universe kind of thing, how things can turn out well. And this story is kind of like that. It's actually, it still kind of blows my mind that it happened this way, and hopefully conveys some positivity out there and hope for anyone that listens to it. So this just happened recently to me a few weeks ago, that I live and work in downtown Denver, and one Saturday morning, the coffee shop that I go to, you have to pass by several like sort of clusters of homeless people. And although I tend to think of myself as wishing the best for everybody, I think a lot of people get in mindsets where they get irritated or annoyed by people, like homeless people or something. And I had a whole set of justifications already built up in my mind as to why I shouldn't give them money, that they would just use it for drugs or getting drunk, or they should also be working for a living like I was, that they weren't trying so they didn't deserve the money. Well, this Saturday that I'm going to the coffee shop, as I'm passing by these groups of homeless people who occasionally are asking me for money or holding up signs, and I'm just ignoring them like usual, I have internally reached a point in myself where I am exhausted with my own financial situation, and that I am about to default on my car payment to the point of it getting repossessed. And I work a full-time job, but just can't make ends meet from my rent, from my other bills, and I had really reached the point where I'd been scrimping and saving and working overtime to try and make this car payment, and I was just utterly exhausted as I was walking to the coffee shop. And I just came to the conclusion in my mind, I was like, screw it, my car's going to get repossessed. I'm just going to have to ride the bus and deal with it. And so as I come to that conclusion and give up, then I think I had like $25 in my pocket, and then I see this homeless guy who is about my age, like late 30s, and he doesn't, I mean, I'm a white guy, he was a black guy, but about in his 30s, and he steps out and he asks me for any change. And for the first time in maybe my entire life, I don't know, I just thought, fuck it, I'm not going to win anyway financially. I'm just going to give this guy $10. And I just met eye contact with him and pulled the $10 out of my pocket and handed it to him and just said, sure, man, good luck, and kept on walking. So I turned around the corner to at the end of the block to go to the coffee shop, and as I do, that guy, the black guy that I just gave the money to, comes running up behind me and taps me on the shoulder, and I'm thinking, fuck, like this guy's gonna try and rob me or something to get more money. But this is where it gets super crazy and kind of a feel-good story, and that guy is actually rich. He wouldn't tell me his whole name. His name was, he gave me the first name Dante. And I've tried to look it up on the internet, but could not find anything that matched with him. But basically, his story was he was a self-made millionaire many times over from some sort of tech company he created and sold. And for fun and kind of as a social experiment to help people pay forward kindness, he occasionally goes to different cities and pretends to be homeless. And he explained all this to me by offering to give me $1,000. So literally, I am just in the situation where I'm feeling financially hopeless, but because I gave a homeless guy $10, that guy now is offering me $1,000. And of course, this is a longer conversation with him because I'm blown away, and he ends up actually buying me a cup of coffee, and we sit and talk at the coffee shop. and he basically finds out more about my situation, and he ends up giving me exactly, at my request, only the $538 that I need to make my car payment. And the rest of it, we decide, me and him, to give a real homeless person the extra $462, which it was one of the most magical things I've ever been a part of, that we went up and offered the $462 to a true homeless person who broke down in tears, crying in joy, and explained that that would help him to buy a ticket to get to his sister's, where he would have a place to live and could get back to work and change his life for the better. That he had been stuck in Denver for 2 months and was homeless and broke. So unbelievable Saturday, crazy set of circumstances that basically led to me having an entirely different outlook on life, in the fact that obviously you can't go away giving away money to everyone, but literally me making a split-second decision to not be so focused on myself and to trust in the universe and just give $10 to a stranger in need actually ended up helping 3 people's lives. Mine definitely by being able to make my car payment and not get repossessed. The true homeless person who we helped to get to South Carolina to his sister's so he could start his life over. And the rich guy who just said thank you to me, because he said why he does this is basically it helps him to continue to have hope for humanity and to spread positivity. And that, so he always says he actually feels like his life is better once he does this. And so anyway, crazy story. Awesome set of events. If you come across a black guy, mid to late 30s, homeless guy, you might want to think about giving him $10, but you should. I think the lesson with all of it is that you should consider doing that more often for anyone, because that was what the guy Dante was trying to instill in people, to pay it forward and you might actually reap benefits for yourself. So anyway, I hope you guys can use this story. Crazy set of events, and there's good people out there, so don't give up hope. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
There you go, Freddie. See, it's not all demons in the trees.
That's nice. It's a nice story.
Yeah.
That guy was very, probably had a nice fulfilling day along with the rich guy.
Yep. Yeah.
And
the rich guy had a more fulfilling day because he's rich.
No, those rich people are mostly unhappy people.
Yeah.
They really are. Yeah. They're always on this chase for another comma.
Well, that guy seems like he's figured it out. If he's rich enough where he's going around giving away money and trying to affect. I've actually often thought about that, of like, I think that is because you hear about like Bill Gates or and then people make a big deal out of, Bill Gates gave, $10 million to this charity or whatever.
Which he owns.
Yeah, which he owns. But even if you take out all the subterfuge and the
shell game.
Yeah, the shell game part of it and corruption and everything.
It's just tax evasion.
Even if he's actually giving can you imagine how many people's lives could be changed and uplifted from a grassroots ground level up if, say, the equivalent of Bill Gates went out and just started getting to know Freddie and, okay, you've got your car needs to get fixed. Okay, I'm going to pay for your car to get fixed, Freddie. And then he gets to know you. You get to know him. The granted, it's a much slower process than just giving away a big, but like the ability to actually then encourage and give people hope as well as to understand more where each other is coming from on stuff, is vastly superior on that individual helping people rather than just donating to some large charity, even if the charity is doing what they claim with the money. It's sort of like a reverse pyramid scheme.
Right.
Is the way that I was thinking about it, where like basically a paying it forward.
Well, you should
where,
always affect this circle of people that you can affect.
Yeah.
That's really...
But I mean, that's what, like, if you were rich, that seems like what it would be very cool to do. Or what it seems like. Because Bill Gates doesn't need more money.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He doesn't have it all yet.
But I mean, he could just in a few days, completely transform like an entire, few blocks of a city, probably. Individual, like in ways they really want to be transformed. I'm not talking about like ways to really help them. Like,
but then in his 10th mansion, there wouldn't be the gold-plated Shark Tank.
Yep,
Jim.
That's true.
You're missing out. And how sad would Bill Gates be?
Well, and also his other billionaire friends would make fun of him for not having the gold-plated Shark Tank. Which would, drive it, make him very
Are you
angry.
trying to make Bill Gates sad, Jim?
Yeah.
Sounds like you are.
Very angry, and he would have to take over some companies and go through a lot to get that gold-plated Shark Tank.
Right. I mean...
It is, It's amazing how much it is perception and relative to
because the things that make
in.
Bill Gates happy is not one gold-plated Shark Tank, but all the gold-plated Shark Tanks.
But that's exactly that is what's so fascinating about like wealth disparity and just a crumb from a really rich person could radically transform somebody else's life. Yet so many of them don't do it when they could. Yeah. But I mean, it's just fascinating that is always there. Like, but we just all get used to it.
It's the system.
Yeah.
It's meant to keep them there and you here.
Well, but also, but I'll say there's part of it is us, though.
Yeah.
By just making that differentiation between them and us or whatever, like the answer is, unfortunately, it's all of us. It is us making the decision to give away what we can to the person that has less. So that's always a decision, and it's sort of a cop out then if you use the us.
Well, no, because
to avoid doing that.
Your amount of monopoly money on the monopoly board being 1%, theirs being the 99%, you can totally stress over whether you gave away some of your 1% or not. But in the grand scheme of things, it is insignificant.
Obviously.
I mean, not on a personal level.
Yeah.
I mean, in a winning the entire game level, like their moves could be astronomically more effective than your moves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but you're not that person. You don't have the ability to make those decisions for them. You're just Freddy.
Right.
So you can only
that's like I said, you can only affect
you control.
You can only affect your circle of influence, which is people that you walk into and talk to and on your daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't talk to the same people Bill Gates talks to.
Yeah.
But
I do think there's power in that of what if you as an individual, like people like he was saying in that call, they kind of discount or make a story of why in their minds they don't help the guy that they pass on the street with $10. And that probably of every individual, whether they were Bill Gates or not, it's fascinating to think that Bill Gates could change an entire city. But more to the point is that if every individual made slightly different choices.
Here's the one caveat I'll give to your thing. That $10 that makes a difference to that guy, the $10 will eventually be eaten up by the system and not be there for somebody to give at a certain point. As it's gone over the grader of taxes and whatever, it is diminished to the point where it doesn't exist.
So that's sort of like that.
It doesn't
that's
exist
just
anymore.
changing the time. Yeah, well, that's like, but
Well, I know.
we're the
I'm-
compost
but I'm
pile.
saying- but you're
Like,
wondering-
everything is death and
Well,
destruction.
no, but you're
and
wondering.
it's beautiful.
You're
It's
wondering
like,
why it seems to persist. Because
Yeah.
if that
No,
if that $10 existed in the system for the entirety of time and stuff, it could go around and help so many people,
Yeah.
one after another after
Yeah.
another. But it slowly gets siphoned off from the people that it can help to sitting in an account where
Absolutely.
it does absolutely nothing
Absolutely.
for anybody.
Yeah.
And then it's gone. And
Yeah.
then the last person doesn't have it to help the next person with. That's what I'm
Sure.
saying. It's like
Yeah.
there's a
But
There's- there's some
totally.
blame to go around.
Yeah, I totally get all
Yeah.
that. But I'm just saying, going back to the thing of that, you can only make your choice as an individual
Right.
for what you
While you have the
resources you
$10
Yes,
in
while
your
you have the
possession.
$10.
Yeah, you can.
while you're here in this experience before you turn into the compost pile,
Mhm.
which is beautiful. And
Yeah,
we all want to turn
we
into
wanna
that.
do that.
Yeah, we want to
We
do
wanna
that.
transform.
We want to transform. It's wonderful.
Transmute.
We're all excited for that. But before that,
Yeah.
you've got the $10.
Right. That's
and more people, could potentially have a ripple effect of
Well,
changing greater good from the grassroots up.
but that's
by-
kind of like
yeah.
looking up and understanding that $10 is a fallacy. Like your idea that is worth something compared to helping somebody
Yeah.
is what you're saying. Like,
Well, the way that I think about it is it's actually because I try to remind myself to give homeless people money,
yeah.
especially if I start to get clingy on money or too stressed about it.
Mm.
And because, I've had discussions with people about this and where they're just going to use it for drugs or what. I don't fucking know what anybody is going to use their money for. Maybe and not using
You can't
it for
take it
drugs.
with you in your compost pile transmutation.
Yeah, and is it any better if it's sitting in Bill Gates' bank account, not being used for it? No. It's to me though, the thing you're giving is hope.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving that person has a brief, and I've seen the look in people's eyes sometimes when you help them like that,
Now,
unexpected. They sometimes are so freaking like relieved and just like you can see in their eyes, they're like, oh my God, the world's trying to destroy me.
mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for being different from that.
Yeah.
And that I think like if more people did that, then it's not going to solve the Bill Gates
It's not going to
issue. Or
not going to get you out of
yeah.
the system,
Yeah.
which will
Yeah.
still swallow you and the homeless person.
Yeah.
but for the moment,
briefly,
for the moment you'll feel better, and so will they.
Yeah. And it might actually
And Bill Gates
change-
doesn't have that.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
He doesn't have
That feeling.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sure.
No, he
Yeah.
doesn't have that feeling.
No, he's got the just sitting on piles of money feeling.
No, he's got the empty. Well, he's got the full account, which changes commas every once in a while.
Yeah.
And he can ogle over that, but he doesn't have the helping the people feeling,
Yeah.
which is worth way more cosmically.
But he's got a whole staff of yes people that probably tell
Sounds
him.
horrible.
Yeah, that he tell him every day everything he wants to hear, and that he is phenomenal, and that you're extremely handsome, Bill Gates. And
Sure.
you're
What a
wonderful
horrible,
person.
what a horrible place to be.
Well, but luckily, we all get to turn into the compost
Look, you're ready
some
to check out.
at some point. Complete the beautiful transition. All right, so getting into our fourth call now, I'm gonna preface that this is a call. We both know this guy, Freddie. He's a good friend of ours, and I have tried to encourage him to call in a story for us. I'm glad he finally did. This is our friend Cliff, good friend of both of ours, who's a little drunk.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
And this is an awesome story because I've heard Cliff tell it before, called the Guatemalan Death Cave story. And he recorded it, though, at a recent weekend that you and I didn't end up going, but they had a bunch of guys got together, a lot of drinking. Cliff had a recorder and decided to record some stories. And so that was the audio he sent me. And so I had to do some AI filtering audio tricks to kind of get Cliff's voice out of the noise, the party noise, and all of the laughter going on and talking over each other, TV music in the background. So basically, the reason why it sounds a little weird is because Cliff's drunk, and I've had to filter it several times to get Cliff's voice to be as clear as possible. But once you hear the story, I'm sure you'll remember it, and we can maybe fill in the gaps for anyone if if there's parts you think they might not have understood from the story. But it is a pretty, once you get what was going on in the story, it's both funny, and if you put yourself in his place, it would be pretty terrifying. So, Cliff, you take it away and tell us about your cave experience in Guatemala.
So my wife and I went to Guatemala before we had kids. And we're backpackers, so we don't make any reservations. We just travel local bus. We went all the way around the country. I don't know where we were. Somewhere in the middle of the country. And we're in a hostel. Super cool hostel. The guy didn't speak any English. And so we wanted to go on an adventure. So I had Kara go up and talk to the guy behind the counter. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we could take care of that. Yeah. All right, so we want waterfall, caving, and tubing. I'm like, yeah, it's $40 a person, whatever. Bathing suits, shoes, camera, that's it. Okay. So 6 o'clock in the morning. So 6 o'clock in the morning, we step out in this little town in the central Guatemala, and this Toyota Helix pulls up, and there's a couple in there from England or Australia, I forget where, but a couple around our age. So we climb in this truck, two guys, the four of us. We drive for 2 hours through Guatemala, down dirt roads, through villages, have no idea where we are. We'll end up a dirt road after 2 hours. And the guys are telling us no English. Leave everything but your bathing suit. We hike through the woods, quarter mile, there's a shack. In the shack is an old guy and a little kid who's like 10 or 11, something like that. And they're telling us no one speaks in English. And they're like caving. They gave us a candle. A 6-inch candle, white, wax. We marched a quarter mile amount. There was a hole in the ground. And this kid was like, get the hole. And it went in the hole. Right? They're telling him all these boulders like down this hole. Yeah. So he goes in the hole. So we follow him. He's down in this hole. The cave opens up. He's lighting everyone's candle. They jump in the water. It's like a river. It was amazing. There was like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. No one had a flashlight. So then we swim for a long time, and then we get up, and there was like a waterfall shooting out the box, and there was a rope, and we climbed up the waterfall. But it was super cool. At the top of the waterfall, there's this water rushing through, and there's these holes in the rocks all over this cave. Yeah, with water in them. And this young little kid who was like a third of my size, 2/3 of my size, would jump in a hole and pop out another hole on the wall. I'm like, that's fucking crazy. And he's like, big American, you go. I'm like, no, there's no way I'm going in a wormhole. There's no way. Holy cave turns into spelunking, so there's no water. We're going to caves, whatever. So this is probably 45 minutes in. We get back to the water, right along the water, and I realize these candles are way more than half formed. They're 2/3 going. Candles are going to blow up. We have no flashlights. No one's wearing any clothes. There's no alternatives. This little fucker can swim through wormholes in the wall and pop out other ones. He's going to make it out. No one knows where we are. There's no claims. There's no written contracts. There's nothing. We are 2.5 hours in the middle of Guatemala in a cave in the middle of a mountain. Yeah, with an 11-year-old. Obviously, they're well, I must admit, you're fucking dying. No, I'm freaking out. And he wants to go further. And I'm like, no. One of my fewer, I'm like, Salida, we need to exit. Yeah. He's like, okay. And he's yelling something at us. And Tara's like, he's saying there's a shortcut. Well, there better be a fucking shortcut because my math doesn't work out. So we blew out every other candle to make them last longer. Yeah. So we're hiking back. Those burn out. So we light the other two. So now we're down to 2 little candles, like an inch tall. That's it. We're hiking back. And we get to the point where we did all the spelunking, which was like 20 minutes of climbing through caves. We can go back faster, but I'm like, we're not going to make it. And I'm like, tell this kid, when this candle goes out, I'm grabbing him and I'm not letting go until he's dead. So there's big arguments in Spanish. He's like, there is a shortcut. This big cavern. We have 2 candles lit. He's flickering on this big cavern. The river comes down to the wall and they touch. The water's going under the wall. Yeah. And he's pointing at it, telling us we need to go. And he's getting in the river, going towards us. And we're like, what the fuck is he doing? And he's like, disappears. Oh my God.
It's terrifying, dude.
I was the last one. I had the candle, went under the wall. The candle goes out. I go into the wall and I pop back up. And they're in this cavern, half the size of this thing here. The water's gushing in. They have one little candle lit. They're like, what the fuck are you doing? We've been waiting for you. We got to move. We got to move. And the little kid in Spanish is telling us to go down this hole. And the water's going down a hole, like a swirling whirlpool down a hole. Oh, I'm like, and the kid's yelling at us, we don't do this. I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this. And the kid jumps down the hole. He's gone. So there's the 4 of us, the 2, whatever, the English, whatever, couple. And I'm like, holy shit, we're going to die. This is it. And they're like, we're going down. I'm like, go. And like the guy was like trying to straddle the rocks. The water's gushing over him down this hole. And he's like, oh, he's gone. And then the wife was like, she's gone. I have a little candle, literally 1/4 of an inch with tinfoil. And I'm holding it. And Kara's like, I don't know. I guess we got to go. I'm like, this is it. This is the end of our lives. Like, I want to take a moment, right? She's like, I'm going. So she's like, she's gone. So I'm in this cave by myself. Water's gushing by me, going down this thing. And I got this little candle. And I'm like, this is it. This is the end. You know, I like to do a toast. I like to thank all my friends. Gonna miss you. Blah, blah, blah. And the candle's like burning out. It's like flickering. And I'm like, that's it. So I'm climbing in this hole and I have contacts in so I don't open my eyes underwater. All I remember is getting banged around, underwater, like, then I'm airborne. And I'm like, splash, and I hit water. There was a waterfall. And I swam to the surface, and there's the guy with the 1/4 inch candle. He's like yelling at me in Spanish, and everyone in English is like, come on, you're wasting time. And I'm swimming, and they get in the river. Oh, they swim around the corner, and there's the entrance with the light shining down. And the candle's like flickering out, and you can see the light from the entrance. When we started, it was the most amazing thing ever. It was like Jurassic Park mixed with some other crazy, like, and then it turned into like a nightmare.
So, believe it or not, the audio was way worse. You can still hear Dan saying yeah a bunch of times, but the original audio had, oh my god, it was, there was a TV on in the background. There were way more people laughing and talking over Cliff, and then there was some guy I didn't even recognize that was talking about his hurt elbow for about 30 seconds during the middle of the story. Somehow the AI filtering thing removed all of that pretty damn well, which is pretty impressive. But so you remember that story, Cliffs?
I do.
And are there any parts that you think were confusing that we should explain to the listeners out there? Because it's a pretty damn funny story, and if you were actually there, would be terrifying. Just to summarize, like they signed up while they're in Guatemala for a adventurous trip without checking into too many details. They basically ended up being guided by like a 12-year-old into the jungle to go down into a cave, which is one of the most dangerous things you can do just anywhere ever. And then from there ended up swimming and going farther into the cave with the idea that the candles they had would dictate when they turned around to go back out. That obviously, that being the only light they had in the caves, once the candles burned down halfway, that gave them exactly enough time to get back out of the cave. And they've got a 12-year-old leading them, and they go way too far and spend way too much time, so they're way past the turnaround point as far as Cliff can judge from the candlelight. And then through all of this, also, they don't speak any Spanish, and the person guiding them doesn't speak any English. And then through all of this, it basically ends by them having to dive underwater into a whirlpool in a cave in pitch black as their candles are going out, and Cliff's the last one, and everyone else has gone into this whirlpool that supposedly leads to the exit, but he has no idea if they're dead or alive. And
It's so exciting.
Yeah,
It's like a leap of faith at some point.
Oh my God.
To be the last one sitting there. And then, of course, traveling in other countries, it's not like here in America where there's, insurance forms and rules and stuff.
Yeah.
And, over there, it's like, oh yeah, that's a 1,000-foot drop. Don't fall off of there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. So, you being led into a cave, there's no bumper. It's not bumper bowling.
Oh, yeah.
There's no safety devices. It's just kind of,
And
we've done this before.
I think that is the difference. It's the insurance industry and how much litigation there is in the U.S. Because that one of the first times I realized that was me and a buddy ran from the bulls in Spain.
Yeah.
And when we got to Pamplona, like the morning we were going to run, we're going to the sign up spot and looking for, and there is no sign up spot. And we're basically like, ask locals like, well, how do you enter in to be able to run? And they're just like, you just climb the fence and you want to run from bulls.
Who's it sponsored by?
Yeah.
How do I sue them when I get trampled?
They're just like, and you do it. Like, what happens if I get trampled or gored? They're like, well, you get trampled and gored by a bull.
Cool stories for the bar.
Yeah, if that makes if that seems like a good idea to you.
Being in a cave though, I can't imagine not having any light, and then those crevices. I don't know. I don't understand those people who go looking for that type of caving, and then there's a subsection of caving that's underwater caving.
Oh yeah, scuba diving underwater cave. Yeah.
Like where they, have a tank on and they're just wedging themselves further and further into these little crevice rocks. And then there's one on YouTube or something where the guy went in and thought he was in the wrong place and then ended up dying because he was upside down in a place that he couldn't get out of and couldn't back out of. And they couldn't get him.
Caving is one of the scariest fucking things. In deadly, and then underwater caving, scuba diving is, I think, absolutely one of the most. Even if you're like have all the certifications, experience, it's still dangerous
imagine
as
your
shit.
light or your two lights, if you have a backup light, that they just go out.
Yeah,
your frame of reference of where you are.
Yeah,
in a cave
and underwater too. There's the danger of the silt. Like that happens all the time where like you can kick your fin wrong and there's settled dirt down there that just all of a sudden rises up and it's a blackout situation that's not going away anytime soon, and you can easily get turned around. And then you've got underwater scuba diving, you've got a timer basically that you die in 30 minutes.
Yeah, unless you find a little air pocket, which give you another hour or two
to sit there
to just contemplate
and think about you're turning into the compost heap. To appreciate the beauty of the transition you're about to go through.
But his Cliff story is awesome because it has a good ending and it does sound thrilling once you get out of the danger. But I guess that's the whole thrilling part is the danger and the unknown.
That would be scary as shit to be in it. Yeah, just to kind of reiterate, put it in context. So everyone else in the group, they're about to lose light. He's in a subterranean cave, a river in a cave, and there's no way out except to dive down a whirlpool, which everyone else has already dived down, and he's just standing there debating. And for all he knows, they could all be dead. Because it was a 12-year-old that only spoke Spanish that led them.
Imagine the first guy's a little chunky and gets stuck.
Yeah.
And then everybody's just piling up.
There was actually a Mr. Ballin story that he told about that happening with I can't remember if it was just, I think it was not underwater. I think it was just a regular cave, but that happened of people like basically one person getting, had some accident or something, got wedged, and basically like 3 of them died because they couldn't move forward.
Man.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Oh, what a way to go.
Now, my claustrophobia would never, could never. It's just, ugh. Have you ever been stuck in a place where you can't move?
My dad, when I was a kid, and I think it's a little bit built up in my mind. I imagine if I went back as an adult and looked at, so we, the house we lived in, there was a drainage pipe that ran like under, it's hard to explain, but it was like we had our driveway and the drainage, there was a ditch to either side of our driveway, and there was a drainage pipe that connected the 2 sides of the ditch.
Yeah.
And when that would get, and it was probably realistically like 10 feet long, maybe 10 to 12 feet long or something. And, but it wasn't big enough that a grown adult could fit into it. So all of the sons in my family, we all like, when we were younger, like when you were the smallest one, it was your turn to dig out the pipe,
to clean it out
when the storms like built up mud in it.
Yeah.
And I just remember being halfway through that digging, because you got to imagine there's the pipe itself that's all concrete and like definitely feels very claustrophobic. But then you're digging through all the mud that's built up. So it's all, and it was only realistically probably 10 to 12 feet. And my dad was not trying to kill us and was very reasonable. It wasn't that dangerous. But that, from a very early age, I was like, holy crap. Do I never want to be stuck in a cave?
No, but the first time you try to move and can't, then it just sort of builds on itself.
Yep.
Like you start hyperventilating.
Chinese finger trap. Like if you ever want to play with that, where you can quickly get your brain into that, close to that freak out state, even with your fingers.
Really?
Yeah, because it's the same sensation. It's like you're trying to, what you're trying to do to escape the thing
is just
is
making it worse. Yeah.
And that sensation, totally, because your brain doesn't know how to process that. Because you've got to
try harder, which means get wedged harder.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to like have the presence to calm down and move above that and observe. But like for those few seconds, you can't. Oh my God, that would be the worst, especially if you were in an actual cave.
Underwater. With water like impeding your breathing ability, or like, oh, Jesus.
Those are some of the craziest Mr. Ballin stories, he tells a bunch of those where he finds real scuba diving horror stories and caving stories, and all of them are just riveting, because once you put yourself there mentally, it's just like, oh, that would be the worst experience on earth.
Man, I wonder if that caving trip in Guatemala still exists, or if somebody did get dead. And then they're like, what?
It probably wouldn't even shut it down, though, because they would just be like, some people die occasionally. Like, I remember, like, we've both been to South America, like, different times and stuff. And, like, I remember I went to Venezuela years ago and did a similar thing to Cliff, where me and a buddy just, like, met some random Venezuelan dude that claimed to be like a tour operator, and he was like, I'll take you hang gliding and like horseback riding.
What's your name? Oh, they call me El Diablo. Cool.
We signed up, of course, and then it's only as you're into the thing the next day, like being driven around off into the mountains like a VW Bug with only 3 tires on, that you realize, this is a different thing than in America. This is like the hang gliding was like the hang glider held together by duct tape. Like the the horses were probably stolen from a farm. It's like, and you're out in the middle of the jungle and the mountains with these people, and you're just like, this is kind of could go sketchy pretty quick.
But then you're there.
Yeah.
And like Cliff, he was like put in this position that he'd jump into the toilet whirlpool thing, or sit there as your candle goes out in the cave by yourself in the dark.
Those are some exciting decisions when life gives you that.
Well, we're
There's
glad you made it, Cliffy.
Yep. And I'm going to hopefully be able to clean up the audio on his sequel to this story.
No, he's got a
to
bunch
play.
of them.
Yeah, but the sequel to this specific story, what happens next, is pretty damn funny. So it's got the same audio challenges that hopefully for the next episode I'll have that cleaned up and can hear. I don't want to give away the story, but it's not as dramatic, but more kind of humorous.
Well, we know the people out there have to have some traveling stories. I mean, you guys have gone places. Come on.
That's what we need, more stories, everybody. If you can, just even if you got to get drunk like Cliff, that just goes to show you don't have to be sober.
No.
You can go in the show notes.
We speak drunk.
Yep. You can go in the show notes, click the speak pipe link, and just record a voicemail, and it comes to us, and we'll play it on the show. And if you don't have a story, though, do us a favor and just find whoever, somebody, family, friend, or whoever that's got crazy good stories. Just ask him. Let him know about the show and ask him to call one in.
Why do you think it's a guy?
Damn it! Did I misgender?
No, you just
imaginary.
You just
misgendered.
segregated. That only the guys have the good stories.
Yeah.
So
well, I just
you girls can make Jim look stupid by calling in some of your best stories, and then he's gonna have to eat crow.
Chicks can't tell stories, Freddie.
I have faith in them.
All right. Well, that will probably do it for this episode. Thank you very much. Please call in a story or let your best storytelling friend, whatever her name is, know about the show and encourage her to call in. Thanks a lot, and tune in next time.
Please be aware that Your Best True Story podcast cannot attest to the validity of any story contained within. Additionally, all podcast hosts have failed numerous IQ tests and been legally deemed idiots by the judicial branch of the state of Florida. Therefore, please seek second opinions from licensed attorneys, doctors, CPAs, and/or ventriloquists prior to leaving your job to hunt Bigfoot, dragging a stake through your sleeping spouse's heart due to vampiric suspicion, snipping, slicing, dicing, or gargling any substance, attempting to drive your automobile off of the flat earth, or attempting to overthrow any government over suspicion that they are lizard aliens. The Your Best True Story podcast does not purport to offer legal, financial, or gynecological advice. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Please wear your seatbelt at all times and keep your hands inside your own compartment. If there is a sudden loss of pressure, you do have our permission to scream. The Your Best True Story podcast takes no responsibility for divorce, bankruptcy, possession by an ancient demonic entity, or brain herpes. For everything else, we still take no responsibility, but we do feel very bad about it.
You got a crazy-ass true story to tell. It could be funny or thrilling or creepy as hell. And when you speak it, surely none will make a sound. The world going breathless when your true story comes around. And now I'm gonna give a little word to the wise. The best stories we hear contain a little lies. And of course you should know, since stories ain't the same, don't blame us if yours about your grandma's cookies is lame. We wanna hear that Bigfoot bullshit. We wanna hear that crazy spaceship. The only way you'll ever win a buck is to make damn sure now your story don't suck. We love hearing werewolf funk. So y'all, instead of giving us a yawn, why not tell us about that werewolf on your lawn? And when you speak it, surely none will make a sound. The world going breathless when your true story comes around. Oh, the werewolf. story comes around.
Hear that crazy bullshit flying. One more story before we dying. Oh, hear that crazy bullshit flying. One more story before we dying.
And now I'm gonna give a little word to the wise. The best stories we hear contain a little lies. And of course you should know, since stories ain't the same, don't blame us if yours about your grandma's cookies is lame.
We wanna hear that Bigfoot bullshit. We wanna hear that crazy spaceship.
The only way you'll ever win a buck is to make damn sure now your story don't suck. We love hearing werewolf funk, so y'all instead of giving us a yawn, why not tell us about that werewolf on your lawn?
Go ahead and tell us that Bigfoot shit right now.
And when you speak it, surely none will make a sound. The world going breathless when your true story comes around.
Love that werewolf funk.
Oh, yeah. The world going
breathless when your true story comes around.